Well, for a look at what this all means for French business and the economy, I'm joined by our own business editor, Brian Quinn. Good evening to you, sir. French retailers and restaurateurs must be very impatient indeed, as many people are, it must be said, for May the 19th.
I think we're probably both with them on that, Mark. By the time this lockdown is lifted, some 150,000 French non-essential shops will have been closed for at least 6 weeks, many as long as 9 weeks. Now, it's a bit early to know, of course, for sure just how bad the damage is going to be nationwide, but last year's lockdown during the spring cost Paris area retailers over 80% of their normal sales figures. So for them to reopen in May will definitely come as welcome news. With its multiple holidays, the month is usually a big one for French retailers. It accounts typically for as much as 15% of annual sales. Now, a lot of that activity happens in the country's large shopping centers. France's top employers lobby group is leaning on the president to include those shopping centers in the reopening. Here he is.
We have specifically asked for the reopening of large commercial centers larger than 20,000 square meters, which have been closed since February 1st, representing around 800,000 employees. We talk a lot about restaurants and museums at the moment, and that's important. But shops, which are wrongly considered as non-essential, it has a huge economic impact.
Geoffroy Roux de Bézieux with that insight. Another key element in the plan, Brian, is the reopening of the country's international tourism sector. Huge boost for the French economy, obviously.
Obviously, yes. June 9th, the date that France will once again welcome foreign tourists, as long as they have what the president called a health pass. Now, what exactly that health pass will be, Macron says he's leaving up to the French parliament. We do already know that fully vaccinated American tourists will be allowed into the EU this summer. Here in France, tourism accounts for around 8% of the overall economy. It employs around 2 million people. The sector fell by over 40% in 2020, lost more than 60 billion euros. Now, authorities are hoping for a big rebound this year. They're aiming for 111 billion euros in revenues. So it's likely that the government will be doing all it can to get foreign tourists back into the country and spending.
Indeed, that's good news that people are coming back, and obviously it generates more business. It creates something that obviously people are looking forward to seeing again. Throughout the crisis, though, France has been spending big to keep its businesses afloat. What's the future of this kind of state aid, Brian, as the lockdown comes to close?
Well, the Macron government's very proud of its state aid that it's provided. It's been very vocal about its willingness to spend what they say is whatever the cost to protect French jobs and keep the economy in a position to quickly recover from this crisis. Now, in April, that meant going from spending 7.5 billion up to 11 billion euros each month on solidarity funds for businesses, paid furlough programs where the government covers up to 84% of idled workers' salaries, and a pause on companies' social charges. Now, those solidarity funds, the president says, will be fully maintained through May, tapering after that based on a company's returning sales. The furlough scheme is going to stay in place at least through June. Macron says France has committed 20% of its GDP to recovering from the crisis and that there will be a debt to pay because of that, but he is still determined not to raise taxes to pay that debt. So holding on to that sort of centrist liberal program that has been his whole program here.
Indeed. Brian, thank you very much indeed. Worth pointing out there are some medical people who are raising questions about this whole policy, saying it's too early to open up. So clearly we all cross our fingers and hope for the best. Brian Quinn, thank you very much indeed.